Thank you so much. Good afternoon and welcome again to the Gardner Institute's Leading Academic Units Community of Practice. This is an info session about a new opportunity, leadership opportunity coming up at the Gardner Institute. I'm going to go to the second slide. Anybody that just joined and didn't get a chance to do this as we were waiting for you to join, please grab the URL off the slide or out of the chat and answer these two questions for us. We will address your answers later in the session. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds more to answer, and then we're going to move on to the agenda. Okay, let's go on to the agenda. So today we're going to try to accomplish about 5 things. We're going to tell you a little bit about the Gardner Institute if you don't know who we are. We're going to introduce the community of practice leaders. We're going to talk about why this particular community of practice is being developed. And then we'll tell you some details about how to join us, and we'll answer questions. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is at any time you have a question, drop it in the chat, and we will also try to monitor the chat to catch those questions as well. And before I turn it over to my colleague, I will introduce you to the panelists later, but I want you to know that you're going to be hearing the voice of my colleague, Ms. Katie Locke, who is the Senior Director of Marketing, Communications, and Engagement. Ms. Locke?
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you. I'm going to just give you a brief overview of who the Gardner Institute is and what we do and why you might want to listen to us. What is our expertise, just in case you're not familiar with us. So we are a mission-driven nonprofit, and we're dedicated. Our mission is about transforming student success in higher education. We have a strong emphasis on institutional responsibility, really thinking about who at an institution has responsibility for student success and how can we help you all be more successful. And who do we serve? We serve in our 25 plus years, we've served over 5 million undergraduate students at 722 colleges and universities. And we have also had more than 29, I think that number doesn't include our last class of chief academic officers, so that number's in the 30 now, who have gone through a chief academic officer's innovation community of practice, which is what this leading academic units is based on. So we have lots of happy, satisfied customers. So why listen to the Gardner Institute? We have retention and graduation rates that really improve when institutions work with us. And you can see here just some of the results from our first year redesign program. And we'll leave those and make sure you have these slides if you want to look more at them. And what is the return on investment when you're working with the Gardner Institute? We feel like we have a high value return. What we know is that for every dollar spent paid to the Gardner Institute using IPED's data, we see that you get on an average $26.40 in retention revenue. So we know that your money that you spend with the Gardner Institute is well spent. And the Gardner Institute values research. We value experts. And these are just 3 of the recent books that our CEO and co-founders have published. So we believe in really being on the cutting edge in terms of what's happening in higher ed and what it takes to be a very successful student success leader. Valida?
Thank you. And I have the privilege of not only introducing this team that I'm going to introduce now, I have the privilege of working with them. This is a set of Gardner Fellows that will be leading the community of practice. First, Dr. Scott Newman, who has served as professor, assistant dean, provost, and president, who's currently professor at Oklahoma State University, Oklahoma City. Dr. Paul Lepore, who served as faculty assistant dean for educational programs in the College of Education, who's currently the Associate Dean for Student and Academic Programs at Arizona State University. Dr. Suzanne Summers, who's also served as Faculty Academic Dean, Assistant Vice President for Teaching and Learning and Provost, who is currently retired, I think as of today. So congratulate her in the chat, if you will. And then me, I have served as faculty, vice president of advancement, external affairs and provost at the institutional level, and also vice chancellor for faculty and student success at the system-wide level. And I'm currently the senior vice president for programs at the Gardner Institute. And between the four of us, we have roughly 118 years of experience and counting. And so whatever you're experiencing, one of the four of us has seen it and can probably give you a good example of how to solve some of those challenges that you're facing. I'm going to hand it off now to Dr. Summers.
Hi, everyone. So we are going to pull up the results of that first poll question you guys just did. What are your student success concerns or mandates as the leader of an academic unit? And I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read them. Okay, let's see. I'm interested in hearing more about encouraging motivation. Let's see. How to scale transformational leadership to foster graduate student hope, belonging, and resilience across diverse institutional systems, how to redesign student success systems to serve non-traditional graduate learners, how to transform systems, not students. That's a great point. By fostering hope, belonging, and purpose through intentional, inclusive leadership rooted in data and lived experience. How to lead systemic transformation in a predominantly Hispanic serving university by aligning hope-centered strategies with student success outcomes. I love all of these. And I think pretty clearly the common denominator between them is really this focus on deep sort of transformational systemic change. How do we do that? And then to the first comment, how do we lead the people in our units through that work? So if you will flip on to the next slide, please. And to the next one, there you go. So why are we offering a leading academic units community of practice? If you are a chair or a dean, or as our friend Paul Lepore likes to say, an adjective enhanced chair or dean, you are deep in the trenches of the work, and the role that you play in really systemic transformational change is imperative. And yet we know that often people are elevated into these positions with sometimes some training, sometimes not. A lot of times it's sort of administrative change, training, but really the heart of the matter, the heart of leadership today, particularly academic leadership, is really this whole deep question about how do we address systems. I love that several of you brought up change that is hope-centered. How do we encourage belonging and a sense of inclusion? How do we bring change systems and not students? So that is tough work, and it is, in essence, human-centered work. And all of the sort of focus on this is really how do we lead faculty and staff to a degree too, but particularly faculty in this work? How do we mobilize the coalitions of support to help do that? So as Felita said, I think between us, we all have over a century of time in the trenches. We've got a lot of experience. I'm sure we don't have all the experience, but we look forward to sharing our perspectives on this with you, but also leading you, because we know that there's going to be a ton of experience and wisdom for those who participate in this community of practice. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it off to Scott.
All right. Well, it's great to be with everybody, and we're excited that you're here. I just one comment I would say thinking about that 138 years. I feel like my entire career has been about 138 years in some certain days. But before getting to have the opportunity to work with the Gardner Institute as a fellow, I actually, as a provost, I worked with the Gardner Institute on a couple of different initiatives at my institution and had an opportunity to work closely with them and their team. And obviously, I thought a great deal of them and was delighted when I was invited to be able to contribute back. And a lot of what we are able to contribute back are some of those stories where maybe we didn't do things quite as effectively, or we've learned some things along the way because we stubbed our toe, and we're excited and eager to share those stories with you as well as the successful things that we were able to accomplish. So looking at the second poll results, I'll just go through these quickly. Interested in hearing more about encouraging motivation. So certainly working with faculty and staff is a big part of this kind of work. How do we scale transformational leadership to foster graduate student hope, belonging, and resilience across diverse institutional systems? Certainly any student population, that's going to be an important component. How do we redesign student success systems to serve non-traditional and graduate learners? Certainly an important part of the work. How to transform systems, not students, by fostering hope. This is the same. This is a poll too, right? It seemed like we had a similar one previously.
We only have responses to the first or to the second question.
Okay. And purpose to intentional inclusive leadership rooted in data and lived experience, and how to lead systemic transformation in a predominantly Hispanic serving university by aligning hope-centered strategies with student success outcomes. So as you know, again, as we've been working on and putting together the community of practice, there's several key things that we want to make sure are participant outcomes for those who are able to engage in that community of practice. Certainly looking at the academic unit's goals, the institutional mission, making sure there's as much alignment as possible up and down and across the different key elements of the institution. Obviously, accessing and utilizing data in thoughtful ways so that we can identify common student success barriers and ways that we can mitigate some of those challenges that students encounter. Looking at strategies for different student success initiatives. So obviously, depending on the barrier that you might be trying to mitigate, you look at different tools and how do we apply those within different institutional contexts. I think for those of us who have been at multiple institutions, you know that there are lots and lots of nuances in terms of what and how you implement certain strategies. Thinking about levers of influence, and this is a really big part of an important component that among others that Paul has brought to the conversation, but thinking as a leader within your organization, what are the levers of influence at your disposal that allow you to implement and drive the sort of changes and incentivize the sort of changes that need to occur in order for successful outcomes in the student success area. Obviously, implementation is a huge component. We hear from a lot of academic leaders about implementation. There are lots of concerns around implementation because obviously they're working with, in many cases, tenured faculty or senior staff. And so making sure we're being thoughtful about the way we're engaging up and down and across the organization to implement certain initiatives. And of course, if it's a one and done, it's probably not going to be successful long term. And so really thinking about what are ways that we can implement models, sustainable models related to student success that will, as a department chair, in many cases, you're making decisions for your unit that are going to have implications for 10, 15 years down the road. So how do we make sure that those successful practices are still in place, even when we may not be in those roles? So making sure we're doing those effectively. And then the next slide, we've spent a lot of time thinking about who this community of practice is really designed to focus on. It's really, in our way of thinking, it's about those who are really charged with working with faculty and academic staff to identify, design, and implement student success strategies. So obviously, those include deans and the adjective enhanced, as Suzanne pointed out, deans, department chairs, division chairs. Obviously, there's some nuances again on that in terms of title and the types of organizations that you might be at. People who lead schools, academic schools and programs, and of course, even other individuals, excuse me, even some subunits today have student success directors within schools and colleges, and we want to make sure that they are also included because, again, they're really responsible for driving important change within their respective units.
So I think I'm next. So piggybacking on Scott and Suzanne's foundation, I'm Paul Lepore, Senior Associate Dean in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences here at Arizona State University. I've been working with the Gardner Institute for over 10 years. We worked on the Foundations of Excellence to reimagine our first year experience, and we loved it so much the very next year we did that for the transfer student experience. I'm a convert. I found the approach and the way in which Gardner uses evidence-based learning to really drive systemic change to be something that I really needed in my day-to-day work. And I've been really fortunate to be able to work with these three wonderful colleagues, along with the folks behind the scene, Kristen and Katie, to be able to think about how can we actually put into a community of practice what we have learned over these many years. So to give you a sense, each one of our 8 sessions over the course of the year will be laser focused on things that will help you in your work. We're going to start by launching our efforts in October by providing you a framework of how to think about leading student success at your institution, for you to be able to define what are the places you want to make a difference, and then having each one of the sessions focus on how you can push forward these reform efforts and make a difference in your student success metrics. So we're going to give you tools to help you assess what's going on in your institution, how to leverage data and to identify barriers to student success. We're going to talk very candidly, how can you actually bring along your colleagues and make this a cultural shift and a unit priority so that you're not the only one carrying the water on this change, but it becomes an institutional priority and something that you can get your colleagues behind. We'll talk specifically how, as you're now defining how you want to make a difference, how you can build and lead that coalition for change, select certain viable student success strategies that are data informed. And we're going to be talking very specifically about managing complex change, because one of the things is, I affectionately refer to my job as middle management in the best sense of the word, managing all of the complexities of higher educational organizations is something that is difficult, but it's not unknowable. And we're going to provide you some good insights on how to manage that change. And at the end, none of this work is meaningful unless it's sustainable. And so we are going to give you some ways and some very concrete strategies for you to be able to have change that is not just a one-off, but is something that actually influences your institution, your college, your department moving forward. Next slide. So what is the framework? What are the specifics? Our kickoff is on Halloween. It's not scary for us to be able to work with us during our kickoff workshop, which will take place over 3 hours in Chicago. It's part of a pre-conference workshop on the Gardner Institute Symposium. And then we'll have 7 sessions starting in December and ending off in June. It'll run for about 90 minutes each over Zoom. The first hour will be talking very specifically about the ways that you and your colleagues can move forward on the reform efforts that you are championing. And the last 30 minutes will be an opportunity for us as a community to be able to work together, to have questions answered, to be able to learn from the peers that will be part of this community of practice. And so it'll be a combination of learning and working and sharing, and a whole host of materials will be given to you before each session as well as after, to be able to start enacting these processes of change on your own institution. So with that, let me kick it back to Katie to talk about some more details.
Someday I'll
Fine.
start unmuting myself before I start speaking. Thank you, Paul. So of course, the fees are crucial for everyone. The fees are $445 per person. And there is a discount if you bring a team of 4. So if you have a group that's interested in doing this, we can give you a little discount. The fees do include the cost of attending the symposium and the pre-conference workshop. The travel to and from the symposium and the housing there will be on your own. And it's a brief application process, very easy to do. And when we send out the recording and the links to the slides, we will also include a link for you to register. And I think I'm passing it back to you, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Locke. If I heard you, it sounded like you said $445. The
I'm
slide
afraid
says 4,000.
4,445. Apologize if I misspoke.
Right. Just didn't want people to think they hit the right bargain session and they were going to get a really great deal that nobody else gets. But that's the price. Thank you for walking us through that. So I see we have 12 participants who've been very patient and very quiet, waiting for their turn. It's now your turn. If you have questions, drop them into the chat for us. We'd love to answer any questions that you might have. So maybe I can kick you off. Given everything that we've covered just now, are there any questions or concerns that you have about justifying this to your supervisor, or you're making the case for your participation? Or are you wondering if you are eligible to participate given your title and the work that you do? Drop it in the chat and let us know so we can help you make those decisions. And if there's anything maybe that we missed that you were hoping we would talk about and you haven't heard us mention specifically in this chat, let us know.
And Felita, I forgot to mention that we do recognize that budgets are tight right now and things are unclear. If you would like to split this into 2 fiscal years or 2 payments over the course of the year, we're happy to accommodate that.
Thank you. Excellent added information. So Suzanne, okay, here. Are we to bring out institutional data for some of the working sessions? Are we to bring out institutional data for some of the working sessions?
So I think the answer to that is that in some of the probably pre-work and follow-on work, it will be helpful to you to go back and look at your own data. We recognize that data capabilities vary by institution. So I think one of the things we'll be, talking about as we talk about data is sort of discerning what's the right data, but also what's the right and available data for my institution. But the short answer to that is yes, we will be asking you for some data to look through as we help you think through what's the most impactful initiative you can craft. Paul, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's exactly right. Using data to be able to make an argument is part of the cultural shift we're talking about. How do you actually make your college or your department a data-informed organization? And we will talk specifically about how to do that, about how to make the case using data. It's also one of the things that as you start thinking about reform initiatives, a lot of us that do this work are enmeshed in this data daily. That's not the case for a lot of our faculty and staff. And so to be able to bring them up to speed on why is this issue that we're addressing important? How do we know we're making progress? How can we benchmark ourselves against either our goals or other institutions like ourselves are all part of how to use data in an informed way. Oftentimes universities have data people and then they have everyone else. we want to kind of bridge that gap and be able to make sure that the data that you have that is really driving why you want to do this work is something that you can share in a way to bring everyone up to speed. So yes, it's a great question, Manju.
And I have dropped in the chat. Scott said it, but I just want to punch it home. Between the four of us, 2-year, 4-year, and university experience. So all institutional types, public, private, for-profit. The Gardner Institute has worked with all types. So if that's a question that maybe is in the back of your mind, we welcome you to join us. Any other questions? This isn't like text where you can see people are typing. The questions or anything else you'd like to learn. I'm going to give a few more seconds and then I'm going to ask the panel to talk a little bit about why you think this is important from a personal standpoint. Why is this particular community or practice important?
I will, maybe I'll start. I've been an assistant dean and an associate dean for a while. And I always think, hindsight's 2020, but I've approached kind of the work now that we're doing with the Gardner Institute. What would I wanted to know before I started these reform efforts? What would have been the things that would have made these efforts more sustainable, more impactful? And that's how I think all of our conversations and building this curriculum and thinking about the workshop and then the community to follow has been kind of our driving mantra. And so I think this is a missed place. We talk a lot about, what presidents, provosts, chancellors do. We do talk a lot about what faculty and staff do. And then there's this group in the middle where really all of the pressure of the university focuses on us. It's from the provost down to us, and it's from our faculty and staff up to us in that middle level. And folks who are leaders of leaders, chairs and directors of the faculty who are in the academic sphere and really do have impacts on students beyond most other aspects in the university, need a community to be able to help structure that work. And that's where we hope that we fit kind of that missing piece. None of us got trained to be a department chair or a dean or a provost. And this hopefully will provide some guidance to us as a community.
I see another question in the chat. Student engagement is tied to student success. Maybe we could add student engagement strategies. I'm thinking about Gen Z and Gen Alpha to the topics discussed.
Scott, I'll jump in, but feel free. Manju, I just wanted to say that really our goal is to help you using your own data, your own knowledge of your institution and your faculty and staff, make the decisions about what the initiative is that will be most impactful for you. So, and I'm saying that because I have seen, a variety of trainings over the years in higher ed where there's sort of a pretty set in stone model everybody is supposed to follow. That is not the approach that we're pursuing, because we understand people come from very different institutional, mission types, different student bodies. We really want to give you guys really a framework and support along the way as you design your own student success initiatives that you believe will be most impactful. So student engagement, you're absolutely right. It's an important part of student success. And that might be what you would like to, to really make the cornerstone of your initiative. There will, between all of us, as Felita said, we've been in higher ed for, 900 years at least. And, we've got some experience, but we also know that the other participants in the community of practice will have some experience that they can share as well. Scott, you want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. The student success work, as Paul mentioned, people who move into academic leadership roles, most of us weren't trained in leadership or academic leadership or management. And so a lot of the times we kind of have to find our way. And, a lot of the success that people have, it's because of a sink or swim sort of situation, right? They've either figured out how to keep their head above water or they didn't. And they moved on to other roles. We can't allow student success work to work in that way, and I really applaud the Gardner Institute for stepping up in the way that they have for decades, as well as the community of practice in leading academic units. A lot of us, there's a lot of pressure on everyone in academic leadership. I believe, obviously, that we have a moral obligation. If a student comes to our institution, to our program, we have a moral obligation to do everything we can to help them be successful. A part of that, obviously, is identifying and mitigating barriers that inhibit student success. Obviously, there's also practical reasons that there are a lot of pressures around student success, right? We need to do better to help students move through our programs. We need to do better to help them graduate and move into other indicators of graduate outcome success. A lot of times student success without that sort of training, without the supports that we're talking about today, become like this additional thing to the work that we're already doing, right? So I'm a dean. Oh my God, oh my goodness, I've got this student success thing I've got to work on now. Or I'm a department chair. Now I've got this student success thing I've got to work on. Student success is the work. And I want to repeat that. That is the work. That is why we are here in academic leadership roles, to help students be successful and do everything we can to mitigate the barriers that inhibit that. So I'm excited to be a part of this community of practice and engage people who are really interested and have a heart for this sort of work. But it's also very practical in terms of how we've approached it. As Paul and Suzanne have pointed out, our goal is to help meet you wherever you are and help you identify and develop and implement a sustainable student success initiative that will advance your institution and those it serves in significantly meaningful ways.
Thank you. So I've got two comments. One comment is sort of supporting the first comment, saying that our current students are so electronically attuned, it's hard to engage them. But I have this other question. I serve as Director of Innovative Programming in Academic Affairs at my university, and I'm really looking at developing more tech-related initiatives. I would love to hear what others are doing with technology and student success.
I really like this set of questions from Manju and Venetia. One of the things you're highlighting is the various domains in which folks are operating when they think about student success.
Exactly.
That is going to be a direct conversation and important piece that we're going to deconstruct. When you look across your institutions, there are folks in financial aid thinking about student success, in your residential life programming, in your academic onboarding, in your recruiting. And as leaders of academic enterprises, we oftentimes focus on the classroom or maybe the degree programs. And all of those are part of this larger puzzle. And so things like student engagement, technology, things about financial aid policies, things about residential college programs, all of those things have been used at various times to increase student success for different reasons. And we are going to start deconstructing that. And in some cases, you'll be laser-like focused. You want to actually improve the success of your gateway course into your major for your department. And we'll talk about the various ways in which you can do that. In other cases, you're going to think more broadly about what success looks like across the range of reasons why students find difficulties, which may have to do with connecting to others on campus or paying their tuition bills, or any one of a number of things, but that will be exactly one of the ways in which we're going to build this community, is to be able to think about the domains in which student success work takes place, and then help you find the places that you want to lead and what other colleagues on your campus need to help you to lead. Because those will be places that they have specific levers of influence.
And can I just add to this is that, you know, the whole question about technology, you know, and the sort of technological disruption that we are living through, I think, you know, no matter what our roles are, is really sort of front and center on our minds today in higher ed. You know, some of the work, you know, I'm going to just throw this out. I think some of what we are being called to do as higher ed practitioners is really, we're being asked to redefine learning in many ways. I think, you know, what historically we've done is we've focused on access to technology, but we've tried to really sort of shoehorn curriculums that were not designed for the technology to fit the technology. And so, you know, there's a lot of work, potential work around here around faculty development and faculty rethinking. So, you know, it might be that that's part of the work that you might wish to do. I think we've got another question, Felita.
Just popped up. Speaking of colleagues on campus, what suggestions do you have for getting buy-in from colleagues who are so accustomed to operating in silos? That's the fun part of this community. Who wants to take first at it? So I'll just say a little bit. One of the things all of us, the four of us, have experiences, you know, leading through, into, and beyond silos. It is not a very easy condition to change, but I think if you're able to show how students will benefit, how graduation rates will increase, how retention and learning will happen, you sometimes can get more buy-in. And so we will have those conversations about how do you start those conversations? What might those conversations look like with your colleagues? And then you'll have a community to come back to say, I tried this, it either worked or it didn't work. And then we will be able to help you to figure out how to go back and have that second conversation. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, part of our work will also ask you to look at issues through different lenses. So what is the student lens? What is the faculty lens? What is the staff lens? What is the advisor lens? But I think ultimately, you know, a lot of times people have had not so positive experiences. They've been asked to be a part of something and either it didn't go anywhere, or they really weren't allowed to participate and engage at a deeper level and a meaningful level. And so they eventually disengaged because their input wasn't being valued. And so thinking about how can we earnestly and meaningfully engage others in this important work and genuinely work to collaborate with people to come up with something that's better than we ever could have come up with on our own or from a single perspective. And so that'll be a big part of the work that we'll do with you. And you'll have to bring your own context, but we would love to work with you to kind of help you navigate some of the nuances of your unique context.
And I want to reiterate something I think Dr. Summers said. We're not doing a cookie cutter. We really are listening to where you are, who you are, and what you need to achieve. So we got another question here. On our campus, we showcase units who successfully implement student success strategies and have them help other units do the same. That's amazing. Need to learn more about that. Hope you'll join us and share.
It sounds like you're further along than some on the student success roadmap. The ability to be able to have cross siloed discussions is really important. It might be across academic units or academic and administrative units. And some of the strategies we're going to be exploring is how do you build those coalitions? You know, we never have enough resources. There's never enough money. But when you actually can look across the institution about where various folks are also rowing in the same direction and bring them together under a common vision, which we're going to help in very tangible ways how you actually start developing that common vision. And, you know, we're talking in some cases now at the 10,000 foot view, but we're going to actually get into the nitty gritty, into the weeds to be able to say, here's what you can do on your campus to be able to start getting purchase on this work. And so you can imagine every one of the 8 sessions will be talking in general terms, then giving you specific tools that will be very relevant to your institution. So the next question, yes, money is always an issue. I like the idea of collaboration among units. It's the only way to work. It's the only way that works.
It's the only way. It's the only way. While we're waiting on the next question, would anyone else, Suzanne, Paul did a great job of talking about why this community might be important. Suzanne or Scott, would you like to add to that?
I just want to say at whatever level you are leading, you need fellow travelers in the work. And one of the things we've talked a lot about as we've been sort of talking about how to structure this is making sure that people have really a safe, confidential space to come share where they're at or come get advice from colleagues. The other thing that we want to make sure we do is after each session, really leave you with a sort of takeaway activity so that it's not just, you know, come listen, but really by the end of this, you should have something pretty concrete that you've been working towards. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've already said what I need to say, but you know, again, student success work, whether you are able to join our community of practice or not, student success work is not an additional thing, it's the work. And I really feel strongly about that. And please try to take that to heart if you haven't been able to do so already. I think the other thing is to Suzanne's point, we'll meet you wherever you are. And you're going to be at different places. Your institutions are at different places. You're going to have different resources. You're going to have different data infrastructure. You're going to have different faculty, different academic programming, different students that you serve. We're going to work with you from wherever you are to truly identify and develop and implement a student success initiative that will hopefully advance those that you serve in meaningful ways. And obviously, hopefully, if it's the first, then it'll be the first of many. And if it's the 13th, it'll be one more important student success initiative that you can point to that really has advanced the needles, changed the needle in your institution and in your department or your unit.
Are there any other questions or comments? Or statements about what you hope we will talk about and include? Yes, Paul, we've had some great questions today. Seems like you're engaged. We're excited to hopefully meet all of you in Chicago. Are we wearing Halloween costumes? No? Yes. This has been very informative. I'm very glad it's been informative and hope you'll join us. Anything, really appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon. Thanks, Scott. I'm a Chicago native. Very good. We look to see you. We look to see you there. Is there anyone that has a reservation about coming? If you want to tell us what that is, so maybe we can help you through it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Can't wait to have you. And Katie said we have 2 more information settings coming up, August 27th and September 18th, if you'd like to learn more. And remember, we kick off on October 31st. All right. Thank you. We're happy to share. All right, guys, I guess we say goodbye and thank you and hope to see you in Chicago. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.